licensing, registering with the state, and learning specific state laws that are no different when starting a Black business than any other business. But there are some different obstacles to overcome. There's some special nuances to serving our community and establishing ourselves in the community, and that's what we're going to talk about today. My husband is up to some great and awesome things, and I wanted...
She's not biased, Joe.
I wanted him to join me on the show today because my history, let's talk about our histories
Sure.
to start. I'll start with me. I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs, so I knew nothing but entrepreneurship, and I couldn't think of anything other than working for myself, you know, from the time I started working, even though I have worked for other people. But as an employee, it's you have to have a specific and particular mindset to be an entrepreneur.
Sure.
Not only as a Black business, but as an entrepreneur just in general, you have to have a certain hustle mentality, spirit about you, and I think that's an important something to start with. And I have had my practice for 14 years now, and I couldn't think of working for someone else. So if you could just share a little bit about your history as it relates to entrepreneurship.
That's kind of the good news about our community, I think, in many instances, because our employment numbers look a whole lot different than the majority of society does. And in some other countries, many of us and our parents and other generations have had to start businesses and really make a living at that. And the opposite is the case as well. So I'm absolutely not a born entrepreneur. I don't come from a family of entrepreneurs. My mother's a high school teacher, as you know. My father is a librarian, and everything that I've ever known in life was to go to college, get a job, and take care of your family, and that was it. And it wasn't until, and you know, you and I are old enough to know there was a point at which you could graduate from high school and actually get a job at CTA, go to work for the police force, get some kind of a blue-collar job, which actually was a decent paying job. And in many respects, there were people who had gone straight into the workforce and didn't go to college who were doing better than I was. I don't know about you, better than I was in our mid-20s and whatnot, because they had gotten started earlier and things changed in terms of, they said, well, no, you need a little bachelor's degree because over time you're going to make more money, or the master's degree, and because that's just absolutely necessary. Now we're at a point where even in going to get a job, you need to have some type of skill. You need to be able to do something that's going to benefit that organization directly. And so things have changed. Work has changed overall, like you said. But in terms of what we deal with as entrepreneurs, it's that, number one. Number two is access to capital. I'm sure we'll get more into that. But as far as background is concerned, I gave you a little bit in terms of what I wasn't in terms of an entrepreneur, and I had to learn. So I ended up teaming up with a buddy of mine and a group of friends, and I started a magazine called Black Urban Professional. So, you know, even though I had the background that I did, go to school, go to college, get a job like that, there was always, one of the things I can say about my parents is that they did instill in me a sense of culture and a sense of who I was as an African American. And I had some really great mentors over time: Jeremiah Wright, John Odom, Sam Greenlee, and a number of others who've always had a great passion for social issues and whatnot, and they impressed that upon me. And I always had a mind for that. So wherever I worked, so I started off my career as a stockbroker, and then that really taught me how to sell. So I didn't know that I was necessarily going to have to sell when I was in college, but I learned how to sell, which is a really valuable thing in terms of entrepreneurship. And once I learned that, and I learned from some good friends of mine who did have entrepreneurial parents and entrepreneurial background, what it was to be an entrepreneur. It's one of those things that once you get bit by it, you're done, you're cooked, right? So I tried entrepreneurship on a number of different levels while at the same time managing my career. Went to go work for JP Morgan, did really well there, managed a lot of money, a little over $100 million as an investment specialist with them, talking to rich families, institutions about how to best manage their resources. And again, the only thing I think about as I'm going through this process is how can I use this for my community? How can I support the people who I care about the most, who I think I can identify with the most? And I left JP Morgan and started my own investment management practice, and I didn't really understand that there's a difference between the way Black folk manage their money and the way other people do. You know,
Share with us. What are some of the differences?
Well, you know, we're a lot. Generally, we just have less of it, so we're going to be more guarded with it. And so that's one thing. There's a learning.
Do we really save though, like we're supposed to?
No, we don't. No, that's the other thing. So a lot of times, so with, just to be frank, the majority of my clients were all white folk out of Hinsdale and where we live now, that kind of Burr Ridge area, and those were my territories. And yeah, there were savings. There was something there to work with. So it was more an issue of, okay, we need to move this around from one bucket to another, from one pocket to another, because we're going to get this much more money if we do it over here, if we rearrange things. So we had something to work with, and it was seldom an issue of whether or not people were on track to retirement. It was more an issue of how do we best position things. So for me, I kind of had the occurrence of, for lack of a better way to say it, tap dancing for this group of people, telling them all these great things. But the truth of the matter is that they were going to be all right anyway. But in our families, with our finances, what we tend to deal with are really more basic things, like here's budgeting, here's life insurance, here's why you need to have a will or a trust. And people be on the edge of their seats with bated breath looking to hear all this stuff, whereas other people in other cultures were completely had completely taken that for granted. So there was a lot more basic educational stuff that we have to deal with our clients. And the unfortunate thing for me, inside of the type of practice that I was trying to run, that you can't really get paid that way. So I ended up having to back up off of that, and I started to hold myself as an accountant, because I could do that work as well. And it was cool for me because I liked working with business owners, and I liked working with people who had really taken that step, I guess, educationally. Not that the ordinary working families were bad. I think my skills was best suited for entrepreneurs, but it was new for me, and I had to build that practice up. And it led me up to some really great and powerful things, I think, a little later, because for the last couple of years, I've been working for a company called MGIC in Cluster Pearls. The MGIC is a best-of-breed market maker in the legal cannabis space. And I hear the oohs and ahs in the background. So just to give you a little world of it, so we were a financial company in the legal cannabis space. We weren't a cannabis company per se. But what many of you all may know about is that cannabis is one of, if not the fastest growing industries in the world right now. Right now it's about an $8 billion industry. It's going to grow to more than 25, 27 billion in the next couple of years. It's going to do nearly quadruple in that time frame. Going to create more jobs in manufacturing, government, utilities all combined. And I watched this process, or at least a big part of it, go from.
Hold on, but for those of you who are listening, I'm hoping that you will take some notes. Know that if you're listening, I hope you're listening live. Ms. Esquire on UBM Radio. Remember, subscribe at YouTube. Subscribe to Urban Broadcast Media. And if you are listening and you'd like to call in with questions, call us 312-754-4333. So now that you've taken those notes, continue.
Thank you. So, give you that plug. So what I was saying is that, so the industry is growing, and what we do, or did, when I worked for them, was to take money. This is what I was going to say. So 30 states, more than 30 states have legalized cannabis, marijuana, for medical purposes. 8 states have legalized it for recreational purposes. Industry is growing like by leaps and bounds. And the whole time while this whole process was happening, is no longer a question of if it's going to be legalized. It's just more a matter of when. People are trying to funnel money into cannabis, and they don't necessarily know what's a viable investment and what's not. And what I did for the company is that I would help them understand what's viable and what's not. Likewise, I would, the entrepreneurs, you have these cannabis entrepreneurs who are, and many of you all may know them, they've been moving to Denver and to Colorado and to Washington State to start their growers or their dispensaries or to put out their product. So what those entrepreneurs are doing is they're coming to my company looking for finances. So what we would do is we would represent them as their contract CFO to these investors. They would come to us because we had a fund of our own, and we had this army of investors that we were representing that wanted to funnel money into the space. So we were a market maker, and this is very similar to the Silicon Valley Bank model. If you're not familiar, so they performed a very similar function for the technology industry before technology was technology, and everybody and their grandmama had a .com idea. So they really helped to grow the industry by making sure that there was what we call liquidity in the market, meaning the money was going back and forth the way that it needed to. So the same thing we're doing with the cannabis industry, and this is just all a part of my background. So what dawned on me was that, was a question, and the question was, why doesn't anything like this exist for Black folk in the Black community? And my immediate answer was, well, there's no value in the Black community. You see brothers walking around with their pants hanging down. You see the car driving past with the music all loud. You see abandoned buildings. You see all of these things these blighted areas that are indicative of our communities. And I said, well, there's no value. That's why nobody wants to invest in them. But I said, well, hold on, but don't we spend $1.4 trillion a year? Don't we have this $1.4 trillion in buying power? And I kind of went back and forth with myself, this little argument I was having with myself about, is there value in the Black community? And ultimately, I made the determination that, yeah, you know what, there is.
We were talking earlier, before the show started, about this idea of Black business, Black community. What does that really mean? Like, when you talk about value for something, and we all know that there's this unfortunate stigma on Black business, whether or not, do we really know what we're doing? Do we have the skill set to be professionals? Do we, have food that tastes just as good as, other restaurants? So what is that? I mean, I think it can be turned into something that's positive and should be highlighted and marketed as such. But how do you, as the professional that goes in to evaluate these businesses and now evaluating our Black businesses such that they can obtain the funding and financing that they need to grow, thrive, and expand and develop, how do you see that working, that idea?
Sure, yeah, so just two things, just real quick. So just, you already knew this already, but just for the listeners, so what I do now is a very similar model for our businesses. So we funnel money back and forth from people who are looking to invest in our communities, and likewise, we represent Black-owned businesses, Black entrepreneurs who are looking to raise capital.
What's the name of the company?
Community Capital.
Community Capital.
Community Capital is the name of the company. Check us out online, COMCAPCORP, Comcat Corp, Community Capital.
Say that again.
COMCAPCORP.com. Now, to answer your question about communities and what is the Black community and how we really get our arms around that value. Number one, I think that in everything that you said, that the operative word is can be. See, I don't really believe that we're a community yet. And that's a bit of a challenge and a poke and a prod to us and our communities, us included, in the sense of that the great Dr. Claude Anderson says that we don't really have communities. We have neighborhoods. That's about all we have. Until we learn how to work together as a group and do business with one another, we're going to have that challenge.
Did we ever have a community in your opinion?
We did. We were forced to. We had to. So coming out of slavery into Reconstruction, we weren't allowed in other people's hotels. We weren't allowed in other people's lunch counters. We weren't allowed to ride on buses if they were full with people who weren't us. So that this is what we've dealt with, and we were forced to really create our own. Now you can argue that they were ill-fitted and the infrastructure was weak with them. Why? Because we don't have them anymore. And I would suggest and argue that we can't blame it all entirely on the tragic events of, say, what happened in Tulsa. There was another element of marketing and excellence that we didn't have that kept us staying put with our own businesses, and just an awareness of ourselves as a group and being willing to stick with that. But yeah, of course they existed before, and I think the opportunity now is to have a new level of that thing that we otherwise call community, that connectedness, that identifying ourselves as a group such that we can move forward very powerfully for wherever our destiny is calling us.
What's it going to take to get us back to that? I mean, is it going to be some major catastrophe that forces us back into that, or what's it going to take? What is it going to take?
I think it's a combination of things. I mean, to answer your question flatly, I don't know. I have some good guesses, and it's really going to take all of us. So I think that's the first thing. It's going to take a unified effort on all of our parts, and I think sometimes we use that as too starry-far, too nebulous a term, because I actually really take some offense to that when people say what we need to do is come together. It's just this constant we-ness that in many respects is, I believe, a shirking of responsibility and unwillingness for many of us to stand up and say, you know what, I'm the one who's going to do it. I'm the one who's going to take charge of this. I'm the one that's going to lead this effort. I got this vision that God has given me to move forward inside of this great thing that I'm passionate about, and there aren't enough of us stepping into leadership. So to answer your question, it's going to take leadership. See, I'm one who believes that the era of iconic leadership is not dead, in the sense that we need our Minister Farrakhan's, we need our Jesse Jacksons, we need our MLKs and our Marcus Garveys, et cetera, who are going to lead the way, and it's time for that next generation to step up. And what my personal mission is, in that effect, is to prop up as many of those people as possible, because I stand for that. The linchpin issue for a lot of us in the world of stepping up in leadership is money and finances. And to the degree that we can create a structure that will help ourselves pool our money so that we can put enough of it behind our future leaders, is the degree to which we'll see a state change in our current state of affairs.
Now, I'm thankful in practice to have had a consistent flow of clients, and the market has been such that I haven't had to worry too much about capital, although there is a cycle in the market, real estate market, and then the real estate crashes, happen, and things do change, alter the flow of cash, and you're forced to, switch gears and adjust as any business should and should plan for. And I think that goes to something that we were discussing earlier, the importance of a skill set and understanding of how the finances should work. We're about to go to a break. So right before we go to the break, I want to make sure that you visit YouTube, subscribe to Urban Broadcast Media, and know that you're listening to Miss Esquire on UBM Radio.
UBM Radio, in conjunction with Metropolitan Apostolic Community Church, invites you to give to our
Affordable Care Act. And what happened in 2010, the Affordable Care Act was the best that we could get.
Engage in the art of conversation 5 days a week. Another perspective with Dr. Leon Finney. Weekdays at 11:45 a.m. on UBM Radio.
Number 10, number 9, number 8, number 7, number 6, number 5, number 4, number 3, number 2.
D. Curtis Randall counts down the top gospel tracks of the week on the Gospel Countdown Rewind, Sunday nights at 6 on UBM Radio.
Number 1.
You wanted to see me?
Yes, please, have a seat. So here's the thing. When this company brought you on, we took a chance on you. You didn't have that 4-year college degree we typically look for.
Right.
But we gave you a shot anyway. And since then, you've worked incredibly hard and given it your all.
Thanks.
You've been an important asset to the team, but I don't think you can be an intern here anymore. We want to hire you.
You're serious?
Absolutely.
Find your next great employee. Introduce yourself to the grads of life. Who are they? Talent worth knowing about. Young adults of unique determination and experience. An ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or even mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
I won't let you down.
I know.
Don't miss out on a resource many innovative companies have already discovered. Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
One of the most important decisions Chicago teens will ever make just got a whole lot easier. Go.cps.edu is a new online platform that will stream the high school applications for Chicago public schools. If you are a rising 8th grader or know of any, tell them and their families to visit go.cps.edu to start learning about CPS high schools and subscribe to receive important announcements about the opening of the application system in August. This message is brought to you by Urban Broadcast Media.
A Choice for Life Holistic Wellness Center has the key to health helping you stay healthy, vibrant, and full of energy. They have the 5-day detox cleansers done with either fruits or vegetables. If you're planning for a wedding, anniversary, engagement, or just looking to get a healthy start, the 5-day detox will flush out 5 to 20 pounds of waste out of your gut that has been sitting there and clogging you up. A Choice for Life is a specialist in colon cleansing.
Play that funky music. Whoa, superstar, your breath is funking up my car.
Is it that bad? I brush my teeth, floss, and do mouthwash too, sometimes 3 times a day.
That funk is coming from your colon, bro. From all that stuff you eat. That backed up waste and toxins that could cause all kinds of problems.
My colon? That's all the way to the bottom.
That's why you need a colonic and a detox, man. Most diseases like diabetes, high blood pressure, even heart problems start in your colon.
Where can I get this colonic and detox?
From A Choice for Life Holistic Wellness Center, man. At 10650 Southwestern Avenue in the Chicago Beverly neighborhood.
Is it painful?
No, it's not painful. Plus, everything is sterile and disposable.
Is it expensive?
For $99, you can get a colonic and a detox. John, call 773-239-7740. Call them at 773-239-7740 or go online to achoice4life.com.
Let your voice be heard. Call the UBM Radio hotline at 312-754-4333. UBM Radio.
Welcome back to the Miss Esquire radio show on Urban Broadcast Media. My name is Attorney Shari Kamal, and I'm filling in for Liz Murray today. In case you missed the first segment, you missed a lot. I want you to make sure you tune in to Miss Esquire on UBM Radio and check us out on YouTube. Subscribe to Urban Broadcast Media. I am here with my husband, Omari Kamal. We are talking about all that he is doing for Black business and the importance and value of Black business that we should all understand and appreciate and just embrace. So let's continue with the conversation and talk more specifically about the service that you provide. Let's say I call you, and you're not my husband. I call you and I say, I need your assistance. I need a CFO in my business. Can afford, or maybe don't think that I can afford a CFO. I want to raise some funds because I'm ready to grow my business. What's that call look like from your end?
If someone's heard about us, and essentially what gets a lot of our clients into the door is that they're clear about the fact that they want to take their business to the next level. And what that means, among other things, mostly is that they want to raise capital. So what I didn't mention in the first segment is that what we use is as a lead tool is this thing called equity crowdfunding. And equity crowdfunding, I could go into that in just a little bit, but it's a mechanism where it's now ordinary people, middle-class people, are able to, and others, are able to pool their resources and invest in private businesses and private industry in a way that they haven't been able to before.
So we've all heard of like the Kickstarters, the GoFundMe. Is that crowdfunding?
Is
that a
crowdfunding
version of it?
Yeah. A lot of our listeners will be familiar with Kickstarter, GoFundMe, Indiegogo, a number of other ones. Those are the more popular. And equity crowdfunding is a little distinct in the sense that it allows business owners to sell off pieces of equity. So whereas with ordinary crowdfunding, you're able to offer some trinket, acknowledgement, of course, but you're not allowed to actually give equity in the business. And that was changed with the Jobs Act of 2012 a few years back, 2012, so 5 years back. And the law was just really effectuated by the SEC and a number of other states just last year. So that's a tool that we use. But to answer your first question, what we do is we set up business owners in order to be able to raise money for their business. Because a lot of our business owners are just trying to keep head and nose above water with respect to do their day-to-day done. But so taking on investors, as sexy as it may sound, is a whole other animal. And so they essentially hire us as a CFO to help them hone their business plan, to help them do evaluation. Everyone's business has a value, but most people aren't present to that. They certainly haven't done the calculation. So it's a lot like a real estate appraisal. So we do evaluation of the business, and based on that valuation of the business, we then determine what amount needs to be raised to get them to wherever they're looking to do next, whether it's marketing, increasing their marketing, hiring a key staff person, buying a new facility, buying new equipment, whatever the case may be, whatever is going to expand their top line and bottom line. We figure out what that number is, and then we determine finance off a piece of equity or do a debt raising, essentially create a loan for them with private investors in the mix in order to propel them to that next level, and then help them manage that process over time such that if they ever need to raise money again, that they'll be able to do that from the same or similar investors.
In your opinion, is crowdfunding the best way for a small business or Black business owner to go about raising funds? What are some other opportunities with your services that one could seek out in terms of financing other than crowdfunding? I imagine this is the most popular, but what are some other ways?
Good question. You know, a lot of people don't know about it yet, so I wouldn't really call it the most popular. And it's not necessarily the best way. Everybody's going to be different and have their own set of needs. It's something that we push because we think that this is a game changer for us and our communities in terms of what we need to be doing. And so in our mind, we're creating sort of an alternative stock market for Black businesses. And that's pretty exciting. It's like just that this notion, because all of us have heard about buying Black and why that's so important, and supporting Black businesses and whatnot. But our question is, if there are no Black businesses to buy from, how are you going to buy Black? So we need to be about the business of actually creating more Black businesses. How do we do that? We invest in them. And now we have a mechanism in which to do that. And that'll add a girth to our Black businesses in ways that we've never seen before. But to answer your question, what other ways are out there? Of course, there are conventional loans that are out there. There are rounds of funding that don't require as much in the way of equity crowdfunding, like just regular friends and family rounds. There's organic growth. A lot of our business owners are, when you're just shooting from the hip and just flying by the seat of your pants, you're making mistakes. And what happens with a lot of our clients when we get in and clean up their books and we help them see where they've been going wrong with things, or not enough right with things, then once they see that, then it helps us define strategy, and there are opportunities to grow organically.
I speak with a lot of business owners who are smaller, who'd like to grow, and who'd also like to grow to the point where they can do work for the government. So government contracting in that process, I imagine it's important to have someone like you as part of the team to prepare them for that size, that scale of a business. So what is it that you do to prepare someone for that level of business?
Yeah, so government contracting and commercial contracting is a very powerful mechanism to be able to use, whether it's through the Small Business Administration, whether it's through the Minority Supplier Diversity Councils, of whatever city or state you might be engaged in. So CMSDC is a big agency here that helps a lot of business owners. There's Cook and County minority designations that could and should be applied for that we help our clients walk through the process of. So this is another very valuable form of, in some cases, financing, but more than anything else, really developing a solid customer for oneself in the sense of developing a sort of big brother, big sister, little sister relationship with a larger entity that you're a committed supplier or vendor for is a big deal.
Right. Well, remember, guys who are listening, we've got a lot of helpful information that's being shared. Make sure you're listening to Miss Esquire on UBM Radio, okay? Make sure you're subscribing to YouTube's Urban Broadcast Media channel. And if you have questions, feel free to call in at 312-754-4333. So now you've got this client, and they are ready to move forward. They understand what they need to do to get ready and how you can provide such a service to prepare them for this crowdfund raise. When is the time to pull the trigger and announce the fundraise? Like what position do they need to be in? Do they need to have a certain level of capital, or what are the various levels of a crowd fundraise? What does that look like?
Yeah, so let me just I gotta subscribe to, I don't know, I just felt bad just now. I'm subscribed.
Remember, that's Urban Broadcast Media. Make sure you subscribe to the channel.
So the steps, like how does this whole thing work? So the first step is to look at what's happened. So the best clients that qualify for equity crowdfunding are client-facing companies that you can go by and see and you can touch. And that's, I think, the current state of affairs. That's what people are getting the most excited about. And so to answer your question, at first it just begins with a general assessment of the history and the story that the business has already inherent to its operation. So client-facing businesses, like for instance, we have Dudley Beauty School is a client of ours. Yvette Moyo and Real Men Charity is a client of ours. They're buying the quarry on 71st Street, so we're doing an equity crowd fundraise for that. Chicago poetry, and of course Andre Joseph on 79th Street, right off Bastion is a client of ours. He's preparing for an equity crowd fundraise as well. So these are just classic examples of client-facing organizations with real needs, looking to grow and looking to expand, making major moves, who are looking, or other companies that have a great story, like the Black Mall with Cassiopeia, so she's preparing for a fundraise as well to expand her operation, actually to build out a storefront facility as well. So these are these things that people are aware of, they know about, they can touch, they can feel, they can imagine themselves in. They've been to a lot of them before. So
there's another way, a different way to support Black business. You can also invest Black, right?
Absolutely. So that's our whole thing. That's our whole thing is investing Black. So we want to really expand the notion of buying Black to invest Black and make a whole thing out of that and create a narrative. And and I think we'll find that it'll be a very powerful conversation. But once we've assessed the business, then if they've been in business already, then we have to do a sort of a due diligence process where we have to make sure that when community capital puts its stamp on it, that it's viable. So examining the financials, cleaning up whatever there is to clean up. Like I said before, performing evaluation, writing a business plan. With any crowd fund issue, there's a video that typically comes along with it. And there's a few state and regulatory processes that we have to go through. But at the point at which it's live, which generally takes about 4 to 6 weeks, there's a sort of a commensurate marketing process that we go through as well. So we walk our clients through the process of actually making sure that they're branding their business as a global, national, at least regional presence. And the best and most powerful way to do that is through social media. So for our clients that don't have a very powerful social media presence, we essentially manage their social media from that point to really build up over the course of that 4 to 6 weeks a solid following, such that when we launch, all eyes are on them. And that social media, which is a very strong component of making equity crowdfunding raise work, it's there. People are contributing. The average contribution in equity crowdfunding is $100, and well, that's in crowdfunding is $100, but in equity crowdfunding, the average is somewhere close to $900. So, whatever number that $900 divided by the overall number they're looking to raise, that's the target that we're looking to hit, and we sort of have it down to a science with respect to how many followers we need to have and how much we need to have in pledges, essentially, through sort of a silent phase that we go through in order to have an effective raise. So that's sort of the process for how we get through it.
Sounds like you're kind of in the business of building business.
Yeah, well, there's a lot that comes with that.
Social media is its own animal, and it's a small component of the overall marketing plan. And then you're talking about the financial component as well, which kind of begs the question about, the dilemma and challenge that a lot of business owners have is trying to do it all, trying to manage cash flow, and then there's so many hats that you have to wear as an entrepreneur, and then wanting to care for it in such a way. I mean, it's your baby, and you don't want to let go, you don't want to delegate, but you've got to do that in order to grow. So it's important to have professionals, a team, it sounds like you have, to be able to manage that process such that you can grow to where you need to be. So a skill set is important, but the team is important as well. Who are you working with here? I mean,
big shout out to Moa Katunde, our Chief Marketing Officer, Shanice Miller, our Director of Client Fulfillment, Rashida Muhammad, our Editorial Director, Dwayne Hirsch, my partner, Managing Director, Noelle Folden, she's on our Client Fulfillment team, Tequila Shabazz, and a number of others. I mean, there's 20 people working on the team in total, and we're having a great time and doing lots of really, really great work on.
Where's your office located?
We're in the Business Center in Chatham on 644 East 79th Street. Okay. So we're right in the center, right in the heart of a typical community that we're looking to transform. And there's a learning curve with the clients that we're having to work with, as you might imagine, because look, there's 2.6 million Black businesses across the United States, but only 100,000 or so of them have paid employees associated with them. So that's a little less than 5% of our businesses who actually have employees. And when you look at the numbers in terms of our receipts and the number of people we employ, it looks like a big number, but our Black businesses employ less than 3% of our total demographic here in the United States. And that's a striking
The
number.
government is the biggest employer.
That's right.
Mhm,
That's right. It's our
mhm.
biggest employer, and we just need to think about that. Really,
Right.
like, wow, you know, who are we getting our livelihood from, and how much have things changed over the course of the last 150 years? Not much, I'd say. But there's an opportunity in that as well. But as far as our business owners are concerned, there's a lot of work that we're having to do in terms of getting our people out of hustle mode. And look, I get it. You know, we all got to do what we got to do while we're getting grinding. But then there's this world of thinking ahead and really looking at, again, building ourselves out as these global presences and incorporating systems into our business that are ultimately going to run them, as opposed to ourselves or the people that we have around us. And that's the key, systems.
What would you say is the single most important thing for someone who's looking for your services?
Yeah.
What is it they need to do to take that next step, to prepare themselves for the Equity Crowd fundraise? If they had to just choose one thing to prepare themselves, what would it be?
Yeah, well, let me sure I know what you mean. So one thing that you need to do to prepare themselves to have the conversation, because I would say, you know, just
To
pick up the
prepare
phone and
themselves
talk,
for your
talk about it,
services.
right?
So is it,
Yeah.
how do they set themselves up? Because like I said, a lot of our businesses, we can't afford a CFO.
That's right.
You
That's
know,
right. That's
so
right.
how would I, you know, if I were someone in need of your services,
Yeah.
come to you, and if I can't pay you, how do we
Sure.
make that? Does the money come through the fundraise, or
Yeah.
how do you charge?
Yeah, so there's an internal, it's more of an internal process than anything else. You really have to really think about the impact that you want to have on the world and whether or not you're really playing a big game. I'd say that's, I mean, as euphemistic as that sounds, you really just want to get clear about that. Like, what do I want to do? Do I want to just continue to run my little local neighborhood diner? Do I want a whole chain of these things? Do I really want to affect the world? Do I really want to create something that lives beyond me? And once you've just answered that question in the affirmative, then you qualify for a CFO.
Good. Now, what's the number where they can call you?
The number is, I don't know what number. It's an 888 number. I wouldn't give you all my cell phone number, but you know.
Check out. We're gonna make sure we share it. You gotta find us though, Miss Esquire on UBM Radio. Make sure you're listening. I'm sure we'll, make sure we'll post all about contact information and all of that. But comcapcorp.com.
That's right, 888-227-8790. I'll repeat that.
We stand by and stand with those who vote and work to protect the First Amendment of the Constitution of the United States of America, which guarantees us, Americans, freedom of speech.
Engage in the art of conversation 5 days a week. Another perspective with Dr. Leon Finney. Weekdays at 11:45 a.m. on UBM Radio.
Adopt US Kids presents Multiple Choice Parenting.
You're bringing your daughter to her favorite pop star's concert. Do you A, wear earplugs?
Isn't this fun, Dad?
I have a soft pretzel.
B, remember the moment with matching concert t-shirts?
That's gonna be $180. Or we can just take a photo.
C, show her how you used to do concerts.
We're going crowd surfing.
I can't. It's too heavy. Oh my God.
Or D, just roll with it.
When it comes to parenting, there are no perfect answers. But that's okay, because you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Teens in foster care will love you just the same.
For more information on how you can adopt, visit adoptuskids.org/IL. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
UBM Radio, in conjunction with Metropolitan Apostolic Community Church, invites you to give to our efforts to help our neighbors in need in Puerto Rico, Florida, and Houston in the wake of the recent hurricanes. Bring your non-perishable items, clothing, and water donations to the Met, 4100 South King Drive, during normal business hours. If you wish to make financial donations, visit www.themet41.org, click on the Offerings drop-down menu, and select Other. Let us be our brother's keeper. Give now to the relief efforts of the recent hurricanes. A message from the Met and UBM Radio.
Open Broadcast Media has a brand new app for you to listen to the UBM Radio Network everywhere you go. Whether you're in your car, on your job, on the beach, smartphones and tablets, Android or Apple, we got you covered. Available right now from Google Play or the Apple App Store. Check out the Urban Broadcast Media app right now.
Let your voice be heard. Call the UBM Radio hotline at 312-754-4333. UBM Radio.
Welcome to the island of misfit lawyers. The island lets lawyers let loose and talk about their side gigs, quirky interests, or passions. After all, what happens on the island stays on the island. Well, today's show is dedicated to Black entrepreneurship. I had too many drinks. Today's show is dedicated to Black entrepreneurship, Black business. We wanted to share at this moment a special project that Omari is working on. He has a book coming out entitled "Business is the New Black Power." That's hot. That's hot. Tell us a little bit more. When's it coming out? We gotta hold you to the fire here.
Hold me to the fire here.
What's the date?
It'll be out and available by the end of November. Is what we're shooting for, and it's really about this whole notion of where we go next as a community, as a people. To your earlier question, what is this community? What is this concept of community, and how do we move along in that whole process? And what I posit is that we've had two major movements, and one of them was sort of a legislative movement with the freeing of the slaves, like the freedom movement. And then there's the civil rights movement, which is very, had a legislative component to it, but then there was this kind of protest element to it as well. And I suggest that we're flat front against a new movement that's going to entail the best of what we already know. There's going to be some protest involved. There's going to be some legislation involved. But economics is going to be the piece that we've seen at a level that we never have been before. And I'm suggesting that the business leaders of this generation are going to be the new Bobby Seale, Huey Newton, Stokely Carmichael, Malcolm, Martin, you name it, of this generation. And what it looks like is what we look like. And it's going to be a real page turner on one level, but it's designed to be a real call to action, a very action-based text where people can get what they can do right now to affect this upcoming movement.
That's awesome. So are there any ways, I imagine if you got this book, you got a book signing coming up, what are some of the special events that people should be looking to have happen under the...
a few short days after the book is released, we're going to have our pitch event, which is December 2nd, 2017. That's going to be at the Key Men's Club, which is Daryl Petty's place over on 26th and Wabash. Many people may have gone to that. And then the following month, we're going to have a workshop called In the Black, 9 Principles for Profitable Black Business, which is also going to be at the Key Men's Club. And then there's going to be an inaugural Black Angel Forum. So not only do we work with Black entrepreneurs, but we work with Black investors as well who are looking to invest in Black-owned businesses. So we have a group called the Black Angel Society. So now with equity crowdfunding, one of the things that we're able to do that we weren't able to do before because it was illegal is bring together small groups of non-accredited is just a fancy word for not rich, small groups of non-accredited investors who can invest in private businesses. So we could form investment groups to invest in publicly traded businesses, but we can invest in a local grocery store, delicatessen, or even our local piece of real estate. So our first major gathering of Black Angels.
And those are the businesses that needed needed the most. It seems like it was a bit twisted.
It was. And maybe on another segment we can get, another show, we can get into the world of what's happened over the years that's now had that made available to us. And it wasn't made available by us for us, but I'd suggest that we are best poised to use it.
And take advantage.
That's right.
Okay. Well, that's great. Great information. Let's revisit all of the ways to connect with you. You've got ComCap Corp. All of the information that's there is for the purpose of making sure that people understand your services, what it is you're doing out there in the community. You talked to us about the laundry list of things, services that you provide, and I'm hoping that people will reach out to Mr. Kamal. The phone number is 888-227-8790. Thank you for sharing that wealth of information with us. I guess to close this, let's talk a little bit about how what it is that you're doing affects our larger community in terms of, community development. development. So
Yeah.
you have your clients, but that work that you're doing has a larger impact.
Yeah.
Not only locally here in Chicago, but around the
Yeah,
around the world.
that's what we suggest, that when black business owners get their acts together and get what they need in order to be successful, they create jobs with them will create healthy lifestyles and communities, crime will go down, a lot of things that we deal with that are exclusive to us as a community, whether it's crime, whether it's juvenile delinquency, whether it's education, the wealth gap in general, which is a big deal for us because there are so what we suggest is that $1.4 trillion in buying power is a bit of a misnomer, it's a bit of a misconception. It's a valuable statistic, but we need another one because all it does is characterize what we spend, which it really is just a tool for majority society marketers to get more of our money from us, and we are a complete consumer class of people, and what we want to do is have more of us be more producers, so that not only we employ more people, but we are expanding the wealth base, and with the wealth base, will give us political power, will give us power over our policing situation, will give us power over our media and whatnot, and the things that our children are feeding from mentally, and it'll give us a lot more sway with respect to those things that ultimately create great societies of people.
From a political standpoint, how are you kind of tied in from that angle? Because, you know, a lot of, you know, laws that, when you talked about the crowdfunding laws and how they impact our ability to raise funds, are there any other things that are kind of out there in the works? I know Dwayne Hirsch has, you mentioned, who's part of your team, has been talking a lot about this bill that he's been pushing to lower the LLC filing fees, which will be huge.
Yeah, they can lower that thing from $500 to $150.
I know,
so
I know.
That's a big deal. And so that you took the words right out of my mouth. I mean, the group that I'm most closely aligned with is the Small Business Advisory Council, of which Dwayne Hirsch is on the board, on the executive board of them, and they do a lot of great work advocating on behalf of small businesses in the state of Illinois, and they're a great model for the rest of the country as well. And for business owners that desire to organize themselves, I would suggest the SBAC is a great model for how they need to be developing themselves and organizing themselves around really affecting legislations that affect them, whether it be access to grants, capital, access to certain governmental funds that are out there in the city of Chicago. Just to, you know, put the $20 million into Illinois Service Battle, and that's great, God bless them. And there are a number of other programs that are out there, but their needs and wants to be a unified group. And this isn't a slight towards any group. There are a number of groups out there like COLE, like the Trade Bureau and Rainbow Push, and a number of other ones that are very dedicated to bringing black business owners together. I was just at a conference yesterday, the We Need Business Conference that Ken Spikel with Target Market News put together. So there are a number of pushes out there for bringing black business owners together, and I think it's just that will be a real effort, and certainly on my part. But I put out this call to action to everybody who's out there doing this to really unify, create a strong body that involves everybody, or at least most everybody, that are beginning to take on that political stance, because there are tons of issues and tons of fights to be won. And not won.
Now, you and I both have a special affinity for the area of real estate, so I won't allow this show to close without talking about the impact of investing in real estate and its the impact that it has on the growth of black business, because if our businesses are located in communities that are blighted and look like, you know, ghost towns and are boarded up, that doesn't bode well for, you know, the business that's on the corner that needs to thrive off the people that live in the community. So how does real estate investment, how does that kind of
fit into this whole thing?
Into your whole?
Yeah, it's a critical aspect. I would even say it's foundational and one of the pieces that we're going after first. The statistic that I often quote is that there are 24 predominantly black occupied neighborhoods out of 77 in the city of Chicago. So we constitute a little bit more than a third of the city. No shocking to anybody there. Now, of those 24 predominantly black occupied neighborhoods, we own less than 20% of the real estate there. So we own less than 20% of the land and the buildings and the property that we live in. Less than 1% of the businesses that are in our neighborhoods are owned by us. So that should shock our listeners, that type of statistics, we don't even know where we live. But just like with any problem, there's the opportunity now to begin to really buy back our blocks for real. Now, a lot of people talk about that. You've heard it from Jay. You've heard it from 2 Chainz and Rick Ross. Like, you've heard it from a number of different people. People have set up businesses in the name of Buy the Block. But what does that mean really, and what can be our access to it? And one of the things that we're looking to do is really change the game with respect to real estate investing. What if a small group of us got together, which is what we intend through our Angel Society, so feel free to check out that particular part of our website and look for how you can apply to be an angel. But what if a small group of us said, you know what, we're gonna make it so that if our people rent from anybody, it's going to be from us. And every 2 flat, 3 flat, 4 flat, 10 flat, 30 unit that we can buy, we're gonna buy it out. And we're gonna start with getting our communities and owning them, and then we start to control a lot more of what goes on in our communities, like diversity in our construction forces, in terms of what types of products our businesses sell, in terms of who runs those businesses, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, business is sexy from the standpoint of that, you know, it's great to talk about, and it's something that we definitely intend on. It's a critical part of this whole process. But the real estate piece is foundational, so it's both. So we're going to be equity crowdfunding real estate to a great degree as well, making those offerings to our investors as well.
That's huge, because you have, you know, I deal with, as an attorney, this idea of, you know, financing and how it's become more restrictive and more conservative as the market is rebuilding. But crowdfunding and the ability to fundraise for the purchase of larger, when you're talking about 30 units, that's commercial in nature, that resource for investment dollars is huge.
It is, it is. And we want to change the game, you know, because most of the people listening to this have some frame of reference for real estate investing. But, you know, unfortunately, it's come to this point of like, oh, I need to go get my credit in order. I need to go take this multi-thousand-dollar course on how to flip houses, and I need to go educate myself, and all that stuff is well and good. But, you know, equity crowdfunding changes the game in our view, because it becomes a situation of like, okay, look, you got $100, you got $1,000, you got $5,000. What do you have, right? We'll take you to the house. We'll introduce you to the architect. We'll introduce you to the contractor and whatnot. This is going to be our house, and we do this house by house by house by house by house, and it creates a completely different dynamic as well, because it's no longer, oh, look what they're doing at that house over there. I wonder who's going to get that. You say, oh no, that's my house. So I only got $100 on it, but it's mine. A whole new level of community then gets ushered in.
That's powerful. That's a lot. That's a lot for us to end with, and I want people to remember that they can reach out to you for more information. That's Omari Kamal at Comcap Corp, 888-224-8790. I cannot believe that my time is up for today. Thank you, Mr. Kamal, for joining me.
Mrs. Kamal.
What an amazing experience. Thank you, Liz, for inviting me to guest host. I can fill in anytime. I have to thank Omari again for sharing your expertise on what budding or established Black entrepreneurs need to know, and how to find a resource for not only funding, but a resource to become successful. I'm sure our listeners were able to find value in the topics that we discussed, so that they can establish their own businesses and have them be budding and powerful, and just understand that, you know, we are a jewel in our community, and we need to just embrace each other as such, the business owners in our communities. A special thank you to producer Kelly Fox and UBM engineer Alvin for your support in making this show a success. As always, thank you for listening to the Ms. Esquire radio show on Urban Broadcast Media. I hope that you have, I've mentioned it a couple times, more than a couple times, I hope you've subscribed on YouTube to Urban Broadcast Media. You are listening to Ms. Esquire on UBM Radio. Make sure you keep tuned in and share all the links. We're on Facebook, I'm sure on Twitter. Just make sure you share those links. Thank you for listening to the Ms. Esquire radio show on Urban Broadcast Media. Be sure to like the show on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and visit the MsEsquire.net website. If you'd like to be a guest or a sponsor, please leave a note on MsEsquire.net or on the Ms. Esquire Radio Show Facebook page. Have a wonderful weekend, Chicago. Until next time, this is Shari Kamal tuning out.
these relationships?
Somebody here.
Maybe. Is it somebody? I'm gonna ask you that question. Is it somebody else?
Special thing, y'all.
It is not me.
Y'all know. Y'all got that one girl that's just so comfortable, you comfortable with her, but you know deep down inside, you know you ain't gonna marry this girl.
Now men want relationships and women just want to bump and keep it moving.
Hotspot Radio, Saturday nights at 8 on UBM Radio.
1 in 6 seniors face nuclear hunger, and millions more live in